So I don't know if you know this guy. He is a Cypriot MEP with the European Union who is a YouTuber who was elected by a slim margin. Not when I say slim margin, I mean his entire election was a slim margin. He got like just roughly like 20% of the vote because there was multiple people running and he happened to get the most. And that wasn't because he had a big institution backing him, wild card candidate, and he ended up coming out on top. And so he gets elected in the European Union, and he starts trying to take that alternative approach, like a podcaster who might go visit Tim Pool, or like the alternative perspective. He's going to go out there and do the big brain ideas. And so one of the things that he did in this alternative perspective or in European politics, and really just this people-powered machine he likes by allowing people to vote in Twitter polls to decide his votes in the European Union. We're a representative democracy, by the way. So if you want to do like the ancient Greek role play of just whatever, representative democracy, he chooses to vote that way. It's not worse than what the worst people in the MEP would be voting. Anyway, he eventually takes this alternative perspective to the war in Ukraine. And he is not somebody who supports military aid to Ukraine. He's not somebody who thinks that the European Union should be procuring all these weapons to send them to Ukraine. And he decided to travel to Moscow during Victory Day in order to, in his mind, from his statements, engage in diplomacy. He went there not because he wanted to do Russian propaganda, not because he wanted to, help the Russians in their militaristic celebration. He went there because he wanted to do like a peace mission. Now, mind you, doing a peace mission at a military march that they use to beat the war drum and is extremely militaristic. Just listen to any Putin Victory Day speech. It always has militarism dripping off of it, but particularly since the large-scale, full-scale invasion of Ukraine, going to a militaristic march to try to find peace, it just seems incredibly naive to me. It's like going to the crack den, to where they're like literally making the crack to try to preach like, okay, everybody, we're going to talk about the risks of addiction. We're gonna talk about the devil substances. It's just going to the military march where they're gonna be talking about war to talk peace. It doesn't make sense. That's why you need like a foundation, like a ceasefire, to talk peace seriously, because then it shows that the parties are serious. Anyway, he goes there, does his diplomatic shtick. I hate to tell you guys, the war's still going on. His party, along with a few others, did not end up actually changing up the dynamic and bringing diplomacy between Europe and Russia. He might think that he's doing it slowly. He might think from like some private meetings with the Russians that there might actually be some like headway that, might bear fruit in 30 days time, or well, maybe 60 days times, or maybe 90 days times, or maybe like a 120 days times, or who knows. We'll eventually get there. We'll get there. Anyway, he does this field trip to Moscow, and then after he does his field trip to Moscow, he comes back and they have this vote on May 8th, so at the start of this month, and it's on a vote to support the return of Ukrainian children that were forcibly trafficked to Russia. Now, we've covered this on the channel before, but the way international law works when it comes to engaging with children during war is if a child is captured in warfare, a minor, they are to be given to a third-party country, say like a Switzerland, a Sweden, a France, and that third-party country can then facilitate their movement from there. If they were to go back to Russia because their family's there and they're like, Billy, I want to be here in Russia, so come over here. Billy's not a really good Ukrainian name, but we were going to be in Russia, Dmitriev. So come over here, Dima, to Russia. Okay. If they say, hey, the rest of my family was killed, I have a grandma in the Sumy region, let's go to Sumy, then they'll be sent to Sumy. That's the way it's supposed to work. The way it has worked is Russia went into Kherson, they went into Zaporizhia, they went into Donetsk, went into Luhansk, and they captured these regions. And after capturing these regions and through capturing cities, they came in possession of children, or that they were given children during situations where parents were separated from them during battles in some way. They had to give them up to the control of Russian soldiers. Or in certain instances, they took all of the orphans out of orphanages as they were evacuating from places like Kherson and then moved them to Russia. So deported them into Russia. Illegally, mind you. Again, under international law, this is not how it works. You don't deport them to Russia and then keep them there. You would give them to a third-party country. And you're evacuating. Why would you need to get all these kids in the evacuation? They take all these kids in this process, deport them to Russia, and then they run them through different Russian camp programs. Many of them being patriotic camps that's meant to have them sing Russian songs, wear Russian military uniforms, maybe make some defensive camouflage linen for the armed forces. And there has been reports of abuse. There's been reports of mistreatment. There's been reports of mistreatment due to the speaking of Ukrainian, telling them, that their families and parents back home don't really want them anymore. And this is reports coming directly from the people who return, right? And there have been some pieces of footage that have come up of instances of mistreatment as well, reported mistreatment from within these patriotic camps. And so throughout this process, the Ukrainians accuse something around 19,000 to 20,000 children, with more children being taken still through, more places being captured and such like that, through this process, with roughly only, I think, a few hundred to 1,000 children returned. So we're talking about 80% of the children not being returned. Now, the Russians claim that a lot of these kids want to stay there, and that they actually, all the ones that are staying are there because they want to be there. But there have been many cases reported by NGOs that work to bring them back, that are working in Ukraine, or by journalists showing that many of them want to come back, but they're not being allowed to cross the border. They're not being allowed to cross into Belarus, or they're not being allowed to leave. And so instead, the Russians demand that their families, whose countries are being invaded by the Russians, who might have ties to the Ukrainian government in some way, go to Russia themselves, go to these camps to pick them up. And even then, they might still have trouble. Even then, there's going to be interrogations, going to be interviews. Even then, they might still run into trouble. But these kids cannot leave. And if you want to pick them up, if you even get approval to pick them up, which is still a hassle in and of itself, you have to go to Russia. And through the restrictive process, through the amount of work that the people to go get them has to put in, through the fact that if they are orphans, that Russia just considers them now theirs, and they have them forever. They're now Russians. And even if they're like a 16-year-old orphan who considers themselves Ukrainian through and through, that doesn't matter to them. That doesn't matter to them. And when they turn 18, they're getting military summons. So this is illegal under international law. The standards by which how children are supposed to be treated are agreed to by most of the world's powers, including Russia. Russia agreed to these standards that they are now violating. So this is what this condemnation has to do with. Out of the entirety of the EU, only 3 people voted against it. Peter Volgan of Bulgaria, Friedrich Perner of Germany, and Fidias we'll just say Fidias, because I can't even begin to pronounce that last name, and that's how he's known on the internet. His nom de guerre, which is his name. He voted against it. So this got him into a lot of heat online. It got to the point where anytime he would post anything about literally anything, all of the top posts were, "Hey Fidias, what's going on? You want to help kidnap any Ukrainian children today? Kidnap any Ukrainian children? Fidias, the child snatcher." You know, it was like Fidias did not have a nice time of it in the comments. He did not have a nice time of it on social media. Every quote tweet, every reply, and so it became kind of impossible, I think, for him to just keep ignoring it. And so eventually he was like, okay, I gotta, it looks bad saying don't condemn. It's not even like, hey, we must do X, Y, and Z. It's just don't kidnap kids. Okay, this doesn't look good. Let me go out there and justify my vote. So let's go listen to the guy who traveled to Moscow on Victory Day, explain why he didn't vote to condemn the kidnapping of Ukrainian children. What I actually voted for the children of Ukraine.
The world got mad with me for voting against a resolution in the European Parliament for the return of the Ukrainian children kidnapped by the Russians. In this video, I'm going to explain you how I made this decision, and then you're going to see that I actually voted abstention, not against. In order
to be clear, okay. Let's say, and you can see it's a thumbs down, but let's say it is abstention. Is that impressive? Hey, when people asked me, should we traffic Ukrainian children? I said, no comment. Like that very brave YouTube politician, very brave.
To understand all of this deeply, we can not only focus on the title of the resolution, but actually read the content of it. In this resolution, it is stated that Russia, since the beginning of the war, had forcibly transferred 20,000 children from Ukraine to its territory, and it's committing unbelievable, horrible things on them.
Okay, it did not say on the text horrible things. He did the highlighting of like the dates and stuff, but then it didn't show what the horrible things were. But okay, you can see, for example, some of the things here, including murder, forced transfer and deportation, illegal adoption, sexual abuse and exploitation, etc., etc., etc. Militarization. Yep.
Specifically, murder, forced transfer, and
okay, so he is doing it. Good.
Deportation.
I'm watching this fresh. I'm trying to be, we're watching it raw. I want to make sure I'm not like, okay, I got to do my pre-research.
Illegal adoption, sexual abuse and exploitation, forced crucifixion, and militarization. I was really shocked by this, but honestly, before voting with my emotion, I wanted to do some more research on this. First, I saw that the resolution mentions that its information comes from two sources. The first is one Ukrainian organization created by Zelensky, and the other one is a Yale University study funded
by the way, the Bring Back the Kids does a lot of good work to help, bring back the kids.
By the government of Biden.
I'm so focused on beating Putin, we got to worry about it.
These sources claim that kids...
Okay, so he says that the Yale research study, I mean, this is what's being implied. It's funded, since Yale is funded by Biden, they have biases towards pro-Biden agenda, and they're going to do what the U.S. government wants. Therefore, Yale, having researched the kidnapping of children, it's not credible because they take U.S. government money. Okay. So fuck their methodology. Fuck all the professionals that have worked their whole lives to become experts on this. Screw one of the most well-known and well-regarded educational institutions in the world because they took money from the government. Well, Fidias, you take money from the government. There's many educational institutions take money from the government. Chinese educational institutions take money from the government. Russian educational institutions take money from the government. If the Russians showed they had a good methodology, then I would respect their study no matter what type of money they took. And I'm saying that about any type of institution, as long as the methodology is good. Yale's methodology is good, but we're talking about not some like rinky dink, like just whoever. We're talking about Yale. So we're just disregarding it with a funny clip of Biden. This is YouTuber politics. This is react, lol, gift, reaction image, trollololol politics to its maximum. It's, hey, screw, Yale. You think Yale's a good source? You think their studies matter? You think all those researchers, all those people doing investigative journalism? No. Don't you know that Biden gave them money? You mean the American government that also gave them money during every other presidential term because they're a research institution and the American government has an interest in seeing that research is done within America. It's just YouTuber politics to its maximum.
Were kidnapped from Ukraine to Russian cities to spend time in what the Russians call rehabilitation centers or foster families, far away from the war happening in their hometowns. For the European Parliament, these rehabilitation centers are actually places for forced Russification and militarization. They say this because these kids now attend Russian schools where they are taught their native Russian language, just like the schools in the regions they come from, where they are also Russian-speaking.
Okay, to be clear, native language doesn't just mean the language that is predominant in your area. If, for example, the native language in a certain area could actually be the native tongue of a people that are only 5% of the population. So when you say native language, if somebody's Ukrainian, their native language would be Ukrainian. Now, when we talk about like the national native language, we're talking about their native language, i.e. what they were born up, and like the colloquial use of the word of native language. And yeah, they grew up speaking Russian. But them learning their language that their country that they're from is, I think, is important. I think, like, for example, if an Irish kid went to a school in London, like them not being taught Gaelic maybe doesn't matter on the day-to-day basis of, their interactions with, the market shopkeep because he doesn't speak, the Irish language. He doesn't speak, I don't know anything about the Irish language. I couldn't tell you anything about it. But when you talk to Irish people, that matters quite a lot because it's their culture. They want to protect it. They think their kids should know their culture. And so that might not matter to you, but to Ukrainians, it does matter. And let's just not just say, oh, they're just taught Russian. They're supposed to speak in Russian. There's been reported instances from the children that have come back of them being mistreated if they don't speak Russian, of having to sing the patriotic, militaristic songs of the country invading their nation, and that have killed many of their family members of the country that in many instances won't let them go home.
Resolution also mentions that 1,293 children have already returned to the free areas controlled by Ukraine. So it's true that there are parents right now in Ukraine that they want their kids back. And I obviously agree that there should be ways for those children to go back to Ukraine to reunite with their families.
Okay, let's be clear. No, that's not what there should be. The way it should be is all of the children either go back to Ukraine or all of the children go to a third party, and then from there, they either go back to Russia or they go back to Ukraine. That's how it should go. I don't know how it will end up going, but do we really trust Russia to be the determiner of all of these children's fate? I mean, I'm hearing that for the 1,000 to 1,000 prisoner transfer, that you would expect to just be POWs being traded for POWs. Maybe the Ukrainians can get the Chernobyl defenders back. Maybe more people from Azovstal. Who knows? But I'm hearing that there might be children included. And children could be possibly being used as a hostage here. And whether or not we want to acknowledge it, these children are being used as a political chip. And by legitimizing it in any fashion, when he should know the international law, he should, I mean, it is his job to know. It's just going to do damage. It's just going to do damage to the cause to make this a given that the Ukrainians deserve to, have their children back.
As it is already happening. But during my research, I really tried to think how many out of these 20,000 children that the resolution is saying kidnapped by the Russians are actually in the occupied territories of Ukraine or in Russia already with their parents. The resolution doesn't answer this question. So
why would it need to answer that question? Why would it need to answer that question to know that if any of them are not being allowed to go home that want to go home, or that if somebody is an orphan, that's still Ukrainian people? Like, it's not, these are peoples that would have been in this area, so I guess they're just Russians now. The whole invasion is illegal. So Russia should not be the one determining like the safety of these children. That's why it should be a third party or the government and nation that they're from.
So honestly, this sounded quite fishy, and I felt the resolution was exaggerating the problem. And not only that, I felt that
the resolution did not say every single child in this wants to go back to Ukraine. They just said that by international law standards, they were kidnapped. They were illegally taken, illegally deported from Ukraine to Russia, and it's been over 3 years now. They've had more than enough time to abide by the standards that they agreed to, and they didn't. It's not that they're exaggerating, it's that you don't have reading comprehension.
Europe is trying to use this very serious issue to demonize Russia even more.
Why talk to him? I mean, why? He's a war criminal.
So this way, the European politicians will have more arguments to rearm Europe.
It's all, we're talking about kidnapping kids because it's actually for profiting and making guns. And he's trying to moral grandstand on him snoozing through the kidnapping of children. It's actually about buying the weapons and the moral grandstand. Come on, dude. Look, it'd be one thing for him to say, look, I just don't care. But for this is just another argument for that they can't make an agreement with Putin. Putin is saying by just ground floor, he has to have Kherson. He has to have Zaporizhia. Zaporizhia is a city of 700,000 people. Kherson is the city the Ukrainians took back where the human safari is going on. We just saw how we just saw the bus get hit in Bilopila. Like, what are we supposed to say to that? Like, all you can say to that is we need to make the Russians reconsider better terms. How do you do that? Supply them. They don't need the kidnapped children to make this argument. The children just were kidnapped.
Which I think is a very bad idea that will not bring peace.
It won't bring peace. What will bring peace is sitting back, doing nothing, and telling the Ukrainians to give up as much as the Russians demand. That'll bring peace. The Ukrainians won't do it. The war will go on. It'll just be worse.
Syndrome is also a
Come
thing.
on, man.
Especially children are vulnerable.
Thank you for the sixer. It won't bring peace. Okay, what will bring peace, Fidias? What will bring peace, Mr. Fidias? What will do it? If we just cut off Ukraine's lifelines, will that bring peace because they'll surrender? Is that the peace we want? Just a surrender? Or is there at any point that the Russians are going to have to pay the piper? Or is it just, peace at the expense of the Ukrainians? And then peace at the expense of the Eastern Europeans? Peace at the expense of all these people while you live on your island away from where all the war and all the fighting is and where all the fighting will be concentrated?
In the continent. On the contrary, it could lead to a war, and thus more kids will be...
Guys, we gotta be careful. There might be a war. Guys, we gotta be careful. Hunker down, guys. Please be careful. We gotta avoid a war. We don't want there might be, if we send aid to Ukraine, guys, there might be a war, guys. There might be a war.
be at danger of losing their families or their homes, and even their lives. At that moment, I felt that it was contradictory to vote for a resolution which I thought it could cause the very thing it's supposed to aim to prevent.
So he's saying that to vote to condemn the illegal deportation and kidnapping of these Ukrainian children would actually continue the war because it would be used as an argument to arm Ukraine and not negotiate with the Russians. The same Russians who are right now saying negotiations fucking stupid. Okay. Okay. Well, it passed without you, and you stopped nothing, and now what? It didn't do, like, the resolution was going to pass anyway. Now the only difference is you just refused to condemn the kidnapping of Ukrainian children in this resolution after visiting Moscow, which makes it kind of look like you're being played by Ivan. I mean, that's what it looks like.
I felt that if we really care about kids in war, we
would not condemn kidnapping, and instead we would get to understand the kidnapping better.
to end this war peacefully.
Well, we did try. We just tried this for the entirety of the start of the Trump administration with zero pressure on the Russians, nothing but concessions, and it turned up nothing.
Through diplomacy and
So what different strategy of diplomacy would you offer?
not through weapons.
Guess what? Weapons are part of diplomacy. War is part of diplomacy. I'm sorry that, you know, your version of the world is like a big free speech forum where everybody gets to post their YouTube videos and debate. But in the world, people blow up. In the world, people get shot. In the world, bombs exist. And in the real world, that means force exists. That means invasions exist. That means wars exist. And that would mean for a nation state like Russia, who for the entirety of its existence has expanded and expanded and expanded, not through diplomacy and peaceful means, but often through war, and is now invading into the lands that they wanted to expand it into. If you're one of the lands that you're being expanded into, you're going to need weapons. You're going to need a means to deter invasion. Weapons, it will be a means by which you engage diplomacy and stop future invasions. Do you think the Cold War would have been so cold if the atomic arsenal was only one-sided? Or if we got rid of our atomic arsenal and then got rid of 80% of our armed forces? No, it wouldn't have been cold, or the other way around. Because the Soviets would have been naturally suspicious of our intentions. We would have been naturally suspicious of their intentions. Like, this is a child's understanding of diplomacy, leading to really insulting votes that really insult the Cypriot people, that this is the representation they're getting. Like, oh, we don't condemn the kidnapping of children, because if we condemn the kidnapping of children, that'll kill children, because that'll encourage to buy more weapons. What?
Peacefully, through diplomacy and not through weapons. So I chose to vote against the resolution. And to my surprise, only me and 2 other members of the parliament voted against the resolution.
I thought you said you abstained. By the way, you can see the amount of people that abstained here, 34. It wasn't an abstention. You voted against it. He said at the start it was an abstention.
At this moment, I started not to be so confident in my decision. Maybe I had missed something important from the whole picture. So I finally decided to change my vote into abstention. This
So, wait, that's hilarious to me. He is the natural slithery behavior of a politician. He takes a stand that he thinks is alternative and bold. Then he finds out that he's in a boat with 2 wackadoodles. And oh snap, people actually don't like the bold adventurism if it has to do with kidnapping orphans. And then he says, you know, I'm an abstention now. He doesn't make a justification for why I abstended. He doesn't say that my logic changed. He doesn't say that the argument were good. He just says like, oh man, we got our ass stomped. Never mind, abstain. Dude, it's so vapid. Like, if what he says is true, that this is going to perpetuate the bombing and killing of these kids, which is a preposterous assertion that voting to condemn the kidnapping of kids is going to lead to kids being bombed more.
A curd is a curd.
If that's true,
Unfortunately,
why change your
there
vote?
is no way back. It proliferates.
This would actually make him worse than everyone else, because this would be the one guy who somehow, through his big third eye, has figured out that voting to condemn the kidnapping of kids is actually going to kill kids. He's figured that out. He's that smart. He's got that big of a brain, but he's going to abstain anyway. He's going to, in his model, he's worse than even in my model. Unfortunately, there's no way back. It proliferates. Yeah, it does.
This is something that the European Parliament allow its members for a couple of hours after the vote to be able to change what they voted. And you can see my abstention vote in the official website of the European Parliament. But
you know what happened? He saw the reaction on social media, and he had to find some way to, and he couldn't flip entirely, so he just wiggled out of the vote. That's what I believe happened, but who knows? Maybe he really did just see the 3. He was like, ugh, I could see that. I could see that. Well, I will put out there that he has been confronted twice about this, that this is not covering him enough. This is not covering his behind, and he's being confronted both on the floor of the European Parliament and by journalists. We're going to start with the short confrontation on the floor. Then we're going to pivot over into an interview with a journalist who has done work here on the ground in Ukraine, who did a 30-minute interview with him.
The moral compass of the EU is completely broken. We have cut diplomatic ties with Russia and imposed the biggest amount of sanctions in history.
I want to ask you, have you been to Ukraine once? Have you visited? Have you seen what's happening there? What you do here, and with the massive media outrage you have, especially for young people in Europe, I think it would be your responsibility also to look what's happening there and not doing whataboutism, what you did right now with this speech. Talk about Ukrainians, see what's happening there, and then talk again with us about what's happening there.
So in these speeches, you're not going to get a lot of detailed breakdowns because just the amount of time you have. But there was a detailed interview that I still haven't watched. This is going to be raw for me. So this is my first review. But I saw a lot of people going through this on social media, reacting to this. So I had to check it out. And this is Fidias being directly stop calling him Fidias. He's being directly asked here by Caolan Robertson about his vote and about his messaging on the war. And Kalin has been on the ground here in Ukraine, and so he's extremely pro-Ukraine because of what he's seen here. And so this interview got a little, well, it got a little loud. Papa Dutch, thank you for the $2.
So you're saying there's no one looking.
No, we're not going to do the coming up. Let's just go skip straight to it. Nope. I don't need coming up. Let's just get to the interview.
From their homes. You actually have things I've ever heard from someone. Why your Moscow
Okay,
trip?
here we go.
From his trip to Moscow. It doesn't seem like he's been confronted directly before, not by a journalist. And that is why I've come here to Brussels, to find out exactly what his intentions are. And if you look at the content he's been putting out, it's basically repeating Kremlin press releases. And it appears like he's an asset to Russia. So I'm going to ask him why he's doing this and what his intentions are. Who paid for your Moscow trip and what did they buy?
who paid for my Moscow trip?
Your
and
trip to Moscow. And what did they buy?
let's take this from the beginning. Hello, nice to meet you. My name is Fidias. I'm very excited to be here. You made a video about me.
I did.
And got millions of views. And you were saying that I'm a Russian asset.
You're an asset to Russia based on what you're putting out, yeah.
Okay. What evidence you have for this?
Okay, just because I have to be brutally honest, because you got to be loyal to something. I'm loyal to the truth. If you say somebody's a Russian asset, and then you say, well, they're an asset to Russia as in they assist, that is wiggly. That is wiggly, and I'm being generous. It is wiggly. But I think the better term would be, if you think they're being useful to Russia, you would say useful idiot, which is also insulting, So if you want to get your insult, the thing scratched, you can get it scratched. It's just not a Russian asset. I think implies somebody being on payroll, unless he really has something on Fidias like that.
I've spoken to multiple people that have raised concerns about you for a long time. I spoke to Christopher, who was a friend of yours that helped get you elected. He said that he feels regret and remorse about that he created a monster. He also believes that you've been putting out information that is an asset to Russia. If you put out disinformation and pro-Kremlin lines on a daily basis, especially from here, that makes you a Russian asset, whether...
No, I don't like that. I hate to be the one to say, I just don't like... When somebody says an asset, if somebody said, Dylan, you're a CIA asset, and I say, CIA asset, well, you put out documentaries that in some instances could be, okay, well, no, I don't know. No, I don't like it. It's easy to say useful idiot would be better, or you could say propagandist, or that you've put out propaganda. I think there's a much better terms than asset.
Whether you're paid or not. So how do you respond to that?
Okay, so you made interviews from a lot of people, you said. The only two people I know from the people that you interviewed is the two people that I consider my biggest haters in Cyprus. So you interviewed
So what you're saying, they're wrong?
My biggest... No, well, we can talk. Let each other talk, and we can explain everything. So you interviewed the biggest haters of me, these two guys. The one is the reporter, and I made a podcast with him, and I named it My Biggest Journalist Hater.
Sure.
And this was another guy. We used to be friends, and then something happened politically, and we stopped being friends, and now he's attacking me politically.
Is what he's saying untrue?
It's profitable for him.
Is it true or not? It's a simple answer.
So you took the two people that are hating me in Cyprus, and you said that you have evidence. They told you that they have evidence that I'm a Russian asset.
What is
this evidence?
The evidence is what you post on your feed that gets millions of views and shared by pro-Kremlin accounts. That makes you an asset to Russia. You didn't go to Ukraine. You didn't go to any other...
So you don't have evidence?
The evidence is what you posted on your feed, which is anti-Ukraine, which is Kremlin propaganda. But do you know what a Russian asset is?
So you don't have evidence?
Do you know what a Russian asset is?
So you said you did an investigation.
Anyone watching this can look at your feed and see the evidence. You've been repeating Kremlin lies and lines continuously. That is the evidence that you're a Russian asset.
You know, this is a lot of...
I'm sorry, I can't. There's so many... Look, if the hook to get him to sit down was to claim he was a Russian asset, get his attention and say, so he would be like, I could just sit down and prove that I'm not on their payroll, or just say I'm not on their payroll, and it could be true, and that's the hook, and so you've got to defend that position, then okay. But I say that, some positions might be radical, and you kind of throw them out there to get attention, in the attention economy, but you want like a sturdy, defensible position. And when people hear Russian asset, they don't think, oh, you're somebody who has opinions that are friendly to Russia or friendly to Russian interests, or you repost misinformation, or like accidental or whatever. No, they would think, oh, you're on their pay, or you're in contact with them, or you're working with them, and you're in cohort. So I mean, I get what he's saying, and what he's saying about him reposting their propaganda is true, but I wouldn't use the term Russian asset. I'm sorry, I'm being picky.
People, what is their opinion? They want peace.
This isn't an opinion.
They want to stop the war. So this
but you don't want
Jeffrey
to stop the war.
Sachs, professor of Columbia University, has the same opinion. John Mearsheimer, Elon Musk, a lot of people have the same opinion that they want.
Fidias, do you understand what a Russian asset is?
See, the thing is, John Mearsheimer, Elon Musk, none of these people reinforce his position as particularly like highbrow commentators who have gotten it really right on the war. But again, all he has to argue is like, hey, look, other people have this opinion and they're not like owned by the Russians. And I mean, that is an easy position for him to defend.
Do you know what that means?
Explain, please.
It is an asset to Russia. An asset because you're someone putting out their propaganda, one-sided propaganda. That makes you an asset to Russia. Why are you doing that?
My friend, it's different for you to say that I I say something that you disagree, and
Okay,
it's
so you don't have an
different-
answer to this.
And it's different for you to
Like under these terms, would Kalin be a would he be a Ukrainian asset? And if I mean, I guess he could bite the bullet on that and say yes, but it just man, this is not how an asset in the way that I've always used it colloquially, and everybody I know has used it has always meant like you're on the roll of some intelligence organization of some sort, or the embassy is paying you through a back channel.
say that I'm a Russian
Okay, I'll be
asset.
more direct then. Who paid for your Moscow trip?
Okay, let's go into this
No,
conversation.
who paid for it? Did you
Yeah,
pay for it?
let's go into. I paid everything with my own money in the Moscow trip from my own pay.
And why did you do that?
And why did I do
Why
that?
would you spend your own money going to a Russian military celebration during an active invasion of the biggest country in Europe?
My friend, I didn't went to the Russian celebration
Do you know
of
what
the
VE Day
Victory
is?
Day.
It's a celebration of military
I
celebration.
didn't went to the Russian celebration of the military parade.
That's true. He didn't go to the parade, but he went to like a diplomatic event during VE Day, during Victory Day parade, which they then, of course, used to say, look, it's Victory Day. We have all these people in Moscow, all these people in Moscow. And so, I mean, you would have to demonstrate that, you know, this diplomatic initiative had some beneficial capacity in contrast to its propaganda value for the war-waging country.
So where did you go?
So I went to. So you see, you have here a lot of wrong information.
Well, no,
First
this
of
is
all,
on your
You
feed.
said
This is
you said
VE Day.
based on some people that you talked about that they are my biggest haters.
This is based on what you are
and
posting
then
on
you are
your
saying
feed.
that I went
Fidias.
to the Victory Day to
I didn't
celebrate
say you went to the Victory Day parade. You went to the Victory Day
and I didn't went. So you have a
used
lot
the
of
word
false
VE Day.
information.
But this is what you posted.
You are posting.
You posted
You are posting
from Russia.
misinformation, propaganda.
What propaganda am I posting?
That fake information. I didn't went to the military parade. I'm telling you, you have any
The
evidence?
entire
You have
weekend
any evidence
was a
that
celebration of the Russian military.
I'm paid by Russia? You don't.
I didn't say you're paid by Russia.
You
I said you were an
don't. You
asset to
don't.
Russia, which you are, and you propagate Kremlin lines from that room, a seat in democracy in Europe, against a country, for a country, invading the largest democratic country in Europe. You are doing that every single day. This isn't my opinion, and it's not the opinion of the people that I've spoken to. This is a fact based on what you've posted on your own feed. Anyone can check this out. Why are you putting out Kremlin lies? Why did you use your own money to go to Moscow during Victory Day celebrations?
Okay, so this is a bigger thing.
Did he use his own money to go to Moscow, or did he use EU money?
So first of all, Turkey, Turkey, the country, invaded my country 50 years ago, Cyprus. So it's a similar situation, what happened. So I don't see any...
Okay. This is a bit of a stretch. One country invades another. Similar to what I mean, I guess it's similar as in the idea that war never changes. Men killing men, but it's a little different. Very different wars.
So would you
The phases of these wars, being over 12 years, the multiple invasions, one invasion here, one invasion there, third invasion, the denial of the Ukrainian, whatever.
you go to Turkey?
Wait. So with Turkey, we're trying to solve the problem with the Cyprus problem with talks, with peace talks, trying to make communication with the other side and to find compromise and solve the problem.
So why haven't you gone to Ukraine?
Wait, my friend. I think this is the right approach that we should try to stop the war now and try to have diplomacy.
You always got to ask, okay, what's the reasonable compromise and what happens if it doesn't succeed? Because we've tried very hard to find compromise and the Russians have rejected very favorable terms.
And that's what I just said. I want to stop the war now and start doing diplomacy.
Your
And
job isn't to
because
do diplomacy
this is-
from the European
my friend,
Parliament.
My friend,
That's not your
this
job.
is. If my job is not to do a diplomacy as a member of the European Parliament, then what is
Multiple MEPs I've spoken to in this building said, why on earth is he going to Russia? It has nothing to do with diplomacy. Do you accept that Russia invaded Ukraine and that they are the aggressor?
Yes, I
So
accept
why would you
that,
go to that country
but
and
also
put out
I accept
propaganda?
that Turkey invaded my country.
So would you have
and
gone to
they are
Turkey
the
50 years ago
aggressor,
and put out
but I
Turkish
still
propaganda?
speak. We as Europeans speak with Turkey to
50
solve
years
the
later.
problem.
50 years later.
Is something changed? They are not the aggressor 50
Russia
years
is
later.
actively putting bombs and missiles into Ukraine every single day. I know
And
because I live
Turkey
there.
actively put bombs in my country, Cyprus, but we
50 years ago.
talk with them.
And would you put
As
out
European
Turkey
Union.
propaganda?
So you are saying that what we are doing with Turkey is wrong? That we are talking with.
If Turkey was in its third wave invasion of Cyprus, while doing what Russia's doing, yeah, I would say at this point, if their demands is still, we need to conquer like another however percentage of the island that we haven't conquered. Yeah, I would say that would probably, like at a certain point, you've got to be like, okay, we're just gonna have to put the pedal on the metal when it comes to Turkey.
With them.
Get them back in line.
I think going to Russia and not doing
What we are
diplomacy.
doing with
Fidias,
answer the
you put
question. What we are
propaganda
doing with
Russia.
Turkey and talking with them to solve the
I'm not
Cyprus
talking
problem.
about Turkey. I'm
But
here to
I
talk
am
about
talking
Russia.
about
But this is
Turkey.
my interview. This isn't your show. I'm asking you why you went to Russia and put out Russian propaganda. You didn't go to Ukraine
my
and you
friend,
didn't do any
this is
diplomacy.
not-
You put out propaganda.
This is you don't own the interview. We are having a conversation.
I invited you
and
for an
we
interview, but
ask
you're not interviewing me right now.
each
I'm
other
interviewing you.
question. But my friend, this is what you are accusing me that I'm a Russian asset. I'm trying to explain
are.
you with some.
Gosh, I really wish I could interview him. If you give me 30 minutes, I feel like I could use 30 minutes really well. If I was given this type of a blank canvas with this man, oh man, it would be fun.
Things that I think that I'm not.
You put out videos saying that Russia was entitled to take Ukraine because they speak Russian in some of those territories. That's from the Kremlin
I
playbook.
didn't say that they
Yes,
are
you did.
entitled to take.
You said you quoted referendums.
I'm just saying that there is a lot of things that meet the eye that we don't consider.
No, there isn't. This is a cut and dry
Of
situation.
course,
Russia
it's
invaded Ukraine and they have no right to
Russia
be there.
invaded Ukraine, I agree, but there is a lot of things under this that we are underlook. We don't see the
there
root
isn't.
causes of the problem.
The causes of the problem are
Of
Russia
course,
being an
My friend,
aggressive,
and also
expansionist
Cyprus.
empire.
Turkey is the aggressor, but we still talk as Europeans.
I'm not talking about Turkey. I'm talking
But
about Russia.
I'm talking about Turkey
You can
because
talk about
they
whatever you want,
invited.
but right now
invaded
I'm
my
asking you about
country.
Russia. I'm not talking about Turkey. I'm not talking about Cyprus. You went to Russia
So
recently.
you
I'm asking
disagree
about
that everyone here in the parliament wants to have diplomacy with Turkey?
I'm not talking about
but
Turkey.
Not
You're trying to derail this interview talking about Turkey.
No, but
I'm not
that's-
interested in
that-
Turkey right now. Turkey could be another conversation.
But
Okay, but if Turkey like came to them during this diplomatic meeting and said, okay, give us half of the rest of Cyprus that we haven't taken, I think that the response from the rest of the European Parliament is, well, I guess Turkey's never joining the EU because that's fucking crazy, dog. That we're not doing that. What do you mean? That would be the diplomacy. If Turkey came in and said, okay, let's find some settlement where we'll give some lump sum payment, X, Y, Z. There's no. Like Putin's like standing next to the guys who did the Bakhmut massacre, and he's like flexing.
Today I'm
Turkey
talking about
invaded my
Russia
country,
because you're
Cyprus.
putting out Russian propaganda now, today. Why are you doing it? And you're avoiding my questions. You keep talking about Turkey. Turkey is irrelevant in this situation.
so you said you have evidence.
On your feed.
So all this stuff that you said that I interviewed all these people.
Sure.
And I have investigated and I have evidence.
My conclusion is based on everything that you've posted and based on a few interviews, but mainly what you've posted, that you are a Russian asset.
You said now, based on few
That's no different to how I started this interview. No, it isn't. It's no
on
different.
few interviews.
You put out Kremlin
My
propaganda on a
biggest
daily
haters.
basis.
But by the way, I'm enjoying this. That's why I'm here. This is beautiful. This is your right to.
No, this is really serious. You brought this entire
This is
parliament into disrepute. You have
I do like the olive branch attempt. A third of the way in, immediately olive branch grabbed, crushed. Like, no, this is not beautiful. This is not a good conversation. You're disreputable.
This is your right to attack me. This is my right to express my mandate as I want. And you're doing your job and I'm doing my job.
Is
and
all of this a joke to you?
And this is beautiful because this is democracy. No, having diverse opinions is
But you
not,
have no interest in democracy.
Is not a joke.
You have
No
no interest in
interest
this.
in democracy.
How
Because
do I
you
not
shill
have-
for Russia, who jail journalists, who throw everybody who criticizes the state in prison, who have phony elections, and then you say you care about democracy. How is that caring about democracy in any way? Russia is the opposite of every single thing this parliament
What
stands
is
for.
democracy? Define democracy.
The opposite of Russia. Elections.
The opposite of Russia.
Freedom of press,
My God.
freedom of information, freedom of speech. None of
He went into this like the Energizer Bunny.
those things are allowed in Russia.
Democracy is citizens deciding for how they want to
And you
be
think that's
led.
the case in Russia?
You know, my friend, 70% of the people of my country, Cyprus,
I'm not talking about Cyprus right now.
elected me. I'm from Cyprus. They elected
70%. He says 70% of the people in Cyprus elected him. Is there like a... Here it is. No, it's not 70%. He got, I thought it was like that. He got like under 20%. Unless I don't understand something here. It looks like he got in there by the, you know, he got in there, but he wasn't by no 70%. I don't see no 70% here. Unless there's something I'm not understanding.
me. They voted for me. I was the most voted person in Cyprus, and they elected me. And they want to normalize relationship with Russia.
No, they don't.
They do.
The people
They
of
do.
Cyprus
Of
generally are
course.
not interested in
My
normalizing
friend,
Russian
you
relationships.
can go not only check all my videos and the thousands and hundreds of thousands of views and likes and comments on the videos.
If you go and look at the people on the internet that agree with me, they say they agree with me. What do you say? Caolan Robertson.
That I post,
I
but
read them.
also see the polls of what the public opinion, not only Cyprus, but also Greece, that I speak Greek, the 65 to 70% they want to normalize
I'm not talking
relationship
about Turkey or
We're not
Cyprus.
talking
with
about your
Russia.
YouTube polls.
So
I'm
my
about Russia
job as a member of the European Parliament representing those people is to try to normalize relationship
think
with
putting out-
European Union and Russia.
Putting out propaganda is not diplomacy. It is putting out propaganda.
What
That's all you do.
propaganda is
That the
what,
oblast-
to start discussing, to start diplomacy.
But that's not what you're
is
doing.
Propaganda.
That's not what you're doing, though.
This is what I'm doing. Everything.
You are repeating
every
Kremlin
video,
press releases.
Every video that I say we need to start discussing. We are mad that we are not in the table of discussions as Europeans. But we had the opportunity to discuss and we declined. So we need to start talking.
You're under investigation right now from this parliament. What are they going to find?
I'm not under an investigation.
As of last week, they said they've opened an investigation.
Who said so?
A press release.
Show
You can
me.
Google it after this interview. I'm
This-
telling you that's the case.
This, please.
So what are they investigating?
They're not officially investigated.
They said
You
they're
are
looking
lying.
into your Russia trip.
You see here,
You-
my friend,
you
you,
have
are
also-
just here repeating
Fidias.
a lot of lies. You said you have
you're
evidence.
saying there's no one looking into it
and
right
your
now. No, no.
only evidence is that my videos.
The reach forward was weird.
Which are
Are
cut and
evidence-
dry Russian propaganda. Fidias, I know this is a
love
joke
you,
to you. I know this
but
is a joke
this
to you.
is so beautiful
This entire thing
this
seems
is
like a
what
joke to you.
democracy is. It's amazing.
No, this
And
is you undermining
both
everything
your
about Europe.
job.
What is, I don't know why it keeps going to like, God, democracy. I do love the exchange of ideas. Sir, the Russia's bombing Ukraine.
For you to do it and for me to
Why
do
haven't you been to Ukraine if you care so much about
it. I've
democracy?
been to Ukraine.
Since the full-scale invasion?
No, I haven't.
Why not? You went to Russia. Why didn't you go to Ukraine?
I want to go.
Why haven't you? It's been 3.5 years.
I want to go.
Why haven't you?
I want to go, but to be honest, I'm a bit afraid because what I'm posting might some people find it aggressive, but I want to go. So I started with other MEPs looking into it to go also to Ukraine.
Why haven't you gone? You seem so...
It's a little weird if, because of your commentary, you feel less comfortable from the reaction you expect from Ukrainians than from the country that's doing the invading where you went to Moscow. It's a little funky.
so interested in Ukraine. You seem to talk constantly about Ukraine and Ukrainian politics, about Russian-speaking people in Ukraine.
I'm telling
But you haven't been. Why?
Recently, I've been to Russia. I was also
But you didn't go to Ukraine?
To Russia, about Russia all the time. So I'm looking into it with other MEPs.
I don't think you have any interest in going to Ukraine because you would have done it by now. You're obsessed with Ukraine. You talk endlessly negative shit about Ukraine, and you haven't been.
By the way, I consider that I love the Ukrainian people, and that they want also to end this war as soon as
They don't love him, man. If you, dude, when I see the Ukrainians responding to him on Twitter, my God, man, it's the same coldness that I imagine a man has when he puts a puppy in a sack and goes to the river. It is cold.
So the Ukrainian people are
Hey, Papa Dutch, thank you for the 2. The guy's a complete
Curd.
vacuum skull. Never heard that before.
disgusted with your content. Does that surprise you?
You know, I spoke with a lot of Ukrainian people, and they are not disgusted with my content.
Overwhelmingly disgusted with
I
what you've
love
been
all the
putting out.
people. I don't know. I spoke to the Ukrainian. Did he just? I spoke to some
And people, and they are not
disgusted with your content. Does that surprise you?
Curd is a curd.
Fidias sucks so much, but this journal is not good at debating him. See you in Ukraine. Honestly, I think Colin could have done, or I think it's Kalin. Kalin could have done a better job in here. I think the Russian asset was a weird start. I think he could have brought up specific instances of misinformation and propaganda that he has brought up. I probably would have led with the child vote, then the Moscow trip. But I mean, it might all be, this whole conversation might be predicated on the Russian asset comment. So maybe that makes sense why he started with that in that instance. But yeah, I would have gone about this differently. But I have no clue if I would ever get in the same room as Fidias.
You know, I spoke
because I'm not making 20 million view videos or whatever. I don't know what Colin's video got, but I just got something like that.
with a lot of Ukrainian people, and they are not disgusted with my content.
Overwhelmingly disgusted with what you've been putting out at all levels of Ukrainian society. I know because I live there and I ask about it all the time, and I look into it, I read the comments. Why are they so outraged by your content?
My friend, I say what I believe. It's up to the people to interpret and decide if they like it or not. My job is not to be liked. My job is to do and act according to my beliefs in the European Parliament and exercise my mandate.
Beliefs. You put out videos saying that the Oblast
I gotta adhere to the values and beliefs of my soul. Anyway, everybody choose my next 3 votes by Twitter poll. Go, go, go. I really searched down deep in my soul for my votes.
Should have referendums, and you quoted fake referendums that are done at gunpoint. Why would you reference that and quote that? This is clearly lies. Do you think in Ireland, because they speak English, that Britain should take it back?
I'm saying, my friend, that
I think that's the best question that Caolan's asked so far.
There is a lot of things that doesn't meet a lot of deeper things here. For example...
Well, clearly you're not interested in finding out what those things are because you don't want to go to Ukraine.
For example, Ukraine's NATO that wanted to be partners, that wanted to enter into NATO, Russia saw this as an existential threat that to have military bases of NATO next to their borders. So there is, and this, I believe, is a United States war that they started it.
Oh, God. They were no closer to joining NATO in 2022 than they were in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. Like, they were no further away from NATO, but no closer to joining NATO. This is a war that the Russians pushed forward in 2014. They pushed it forward in 2022. Like, it's not that, like, the threat of a military alliance designed to defend from a possible invasion from you could not ever be threatening because of an uncertainty of intentions. But to pile this on there is to assume that if NATO disappeared, Russia would just go home, which I think is naive.
It provoked it.
Because before NATO's existence, it's not like Russia wasn't an expansionist power before. It's not like they didn't invade those lands and conquer them before.
This
In
is
the-
Kremlin garbage. This is the same stuff
Well,
that in 2014
my
people
friend,
said about the Maidan revolution. It's
if-
complete garbage.
My friend, having the same opinion with some stuff that Kremlin has doesn't. This is you are able to believe whatever you.
Well, this
you
is like
want
being in
here.
Nazi Germany and saying, well, actually, Germany has a right to do this, and quoting stuff that comes out from the German parliament. It's no different.
My friend, I'm
no different.
explaining you. I have this. There is a lot of more deeper things that meet the eye.
No, there isn't.
Here in this conflict.
In Ukraine, it's pretty simple. Children being kidnapped, bombs going into residential buildings every single day, and Russia unfairly and unjustifiably doing that. And you just can't accept that.
And people are dying. People
And
are
who are
dying
killing those people?
every day.
And who's responsible for that?
And we need to put an end.
You can't say it. You can't say it.
We need to put an end to this war. And how we're going to put an end to this war? With how you...
With siding with the aggressor, which is what you're doing, apparently.
So with how do you propose, it's been 3 years, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians die, and this will not put an end.
All Kalin has to say is like, okay, let's say I don't know. What's your proposal? We've tried to negotiate with them in the last 100 days, 200 days, whatever. No luck. What's your idea? What's your idea? Because you talk about diplomacy. If you were in charge, what would be your offer? Put him in the hot seat. Because so far, it's just spitballing from the side, saying, peace, peace, peace. Wouldn't peace be nice? Wouldn't peace be nice? Okay, how do you create that peace?
With whoever
And you
the
think siding with Russia is doing it?
Whoever the approach you want to have is not working because we don't have an end. So we need to find alternative
But that
solutions and
doesn't mean
start
anything.
having
This is
diplomacy.
empty. It's empty. This doesn't mean anything. Russia's the aggressor, and siding with them is a complete waste of time. But that's what you've been doing, and I don't know why you've been doing it.
And this is
I don't know whether you're being paid.
You can say whatever you want. I can say whatever I want. It's up to the people to interpret who they believe.
I think people can make up their own
So
minds pretty easily, especially your refusal to... No, because you're not asking me questions right now. You're not asking me questions right now. If you'd like to interview me...
Cyprus. How did you choose
If you'd like, we can arrange an interview on your channel, but right now this is my channel, and I'm asking you the questions right now.
How did you conduct your interviews?
I'm not going to talk about my thesis and how I put my film together. Again, if you want to ask me questions, I can go on your channel.
With the two biggest haters of mine, and you don't consider this as biased interview.
Why do you support the kidnapping
You don't
of Ukrainian
answer
children?
these questions.
I'm not answering questions from you. This isn't your channel. Why do you support the kidnapping of Ukrainian children? Why did you abstain afterwards but vote for?
Okay, we can get into this. So, for everyone to understand, it was a vote about bringing back Ukrainian children that from the conflict on the war that was in the.
Should they be returned? Should they have been kidnapped?
I agree that they should return, but
you agree that they should be returned?
Yes, I agree.
You didn't vote that way.
But let's talk.
So why didn't you vote?
Let's talk about it. So,
I'm asking you.
So this, I did the research. The Parliament provided us with two citations.
Kalin's dealing with somebody whose English isn't his first language, which is beneficial for Kalin, obviously, but he still needs to give him enough space to put out the words to hang himself with. Like, which is the strategy. Kalin wants to drag this guy into the bush a little bit. It's pretty obvious, but you still got to let him get it out.
To the research that one was from Zelensky. It was the website that Zelensky created. And the second was a Yale University study that I think the Biden administration funded.
Oh, so you think it's fake?
And I think that there is...
That was the first abrupt interruption that I think actually was effective. It actually like put him on his back feet. Like you don't exist in fakeness. Don't just say Biden spent money on some, okay. So because Biden fake, is that where we're at? Like, oh, America, we don't trust America, do we? We're just down to that level of just reductionist nonsense. We don't trust America, one of America's top educational institutions, to do a study, or an investigation. But we do trust the Russians to engage in diplomacy during the same weekend as their militaristic Oktoberfest.
They over-exaggerate the situation, but with the data that I had, I went and voted against. But then I voted after I thought that only 4 people voted against this.
So you think it's exaggerated?
Wait. After four people only voted against this, I did exaggerated, weaponized to weaponize Russia, and that will create exactly the opposite.
Why would he lean into this information? Wait a second. Only 4 people voted against it. So I changed, but it's such a terrible defense. Could you imagine, like, I had my values, then I saw other people didn't vote the way I wanted to, so I voted differently. Okay, yeah, real rebel trailblazer, huh?
The thing that I want for diplomacy.
But Russia is guilty of this. Of course it should be weaponized.
So
absolutely, they kidnapped tens of thousands of children.
I saw that only 4 MEPs voted, 3 in total, about this, and I went, we have the right as member of the European Parliament to go and change our votes 2 hours after. So I went and voted abstention.
But why didn't you say yes?
A lot of other MEPs, I don't know, 30, 40 other MEPs. So all the other 30, 40 MEPs, they are Russian assets.
You voted. I'm asking about you.
I
I'm
voted
not interviewing them right
abstention.
now.
See, this
Why
is the
didn't you
problem. Someone, I would answer a combination. I would say probably a combination of useful idiots and Russian assets. Probably some number of them would be people who genuinely got to that position through their own interests. Some of them are probably stupid, and some of them are probably on the payroll considering Russia's history of buying out politicians and, well, getting actual assets. But because he started with but by Kalin standard, yes, they would all be considered Russian assets, but most people don't use that word that way.
The kidnapping of children.
So all these 40 other MEPs, they are Russian assets.
I'm not talking about other MEPs right now. I'm asking you why you abstained.
All the other 40 MEPs, they are Russian assets.
But you just told me, actually, you agree they should be returned home. So why didn't you vote that way? And why do you think it's exaggerated?
Because from the sources that I had and the time that I had to research, I thought that I shouldn't vote for
So you should be more informed before you vote, right? I mean, that's meant to be your job, not just memes, not just
But wait. So does that mean he would vote in favor of it now? Why abstain? Why abstain? Why not change for a pro vote then? If it's like, oh, I found more information, it was actually terrible or whatever. Why not? It feels like he tapped out on this one because he didn't know how to answer this Rubik's Cube.
I read the sources, I read everything.
You said you read 2 sources.
I'm not sure that anyone here read.
There are 56 charities right now, independent NGOs, that look into relocating and bringing back those children. Why didn't you look at any of their work? Why did you focus only on the Biden administration and the Zelensky administration?
This is what the Parliament provided me. This was the citations that the Parliament provided me. So I had to look into what they wrote it and how. So these 2 citations that I looked into them, I read them, and I thought that the evidence, maybe they are biased.
So you agree Russia is guilty of kidnapping tens of thousands of Ukrainian children and they should be returned?
I think there is a lot of children. I'm not because they.
Ooh, that was pretty direct, buddy.
They said 20,000 because they said 20,000 because some of the kids there, they might want to be.
What are you talking about? What do you mean they want to be? They are children that were kidnapped by Russia. What do you mean they want to be? What on earth are you talking about?
A lot of kids, they want to return, and they should return if they want to.
What children?
Not force
No. Where did you get that from? What children want to be returned, want to stay in Russia? And how do you even know that?
How do you even know that?
Also, when we talk about, like, for example, want to and want not to, since when was that how these parental decisions were decided? Like, well, I wanted to be with my aunt in Russia and not my mom in Ukraine. So I guess with the child. I mean, that's not to say like a child's want aren't at all like what's indicative or whatever, but like the idea that these kids are just going like, mommy, I want to be in Russia forever. I'm sure there's like a few kids that are like this, but ultimately we cannot just take Russia's word for that because their word on this is not reliable.
There is some children that they are happy with
because they have been kidnapped.
How do you know out of these 20,000 children? Every one of them wants to return. They're not happy there.
This is ludicrous that you would say that children that have been kidnapped from their homes that have been bombed, want to be with their kidnappers and return. This is actually one of the most insidious things I've ever heard from someone.
Okay.
What the fuck are you talking about? You actually believe this? It's actually an evil thing to believe. And I've spoken to children that have been relocated back to Ukraine, and they were devastated. They had their identities erased, and you justify it by saying some of them speak Russian. Well, a lot of people in the East speak Russian, but every single one I've spoken to, and I spend a lot of time in the Donbass, are doing everything they can to get the Russian army out of Ukraine.
I love the way that you attack me.
I'm just telling the truth. You have no answers to this.
Truth is something.
This is painful. I think first half, yeah. Second half, he delivers. He delivers in the second half.
Not always. You have your truth. I have my truth. We need to.
No. There's not my truth and your truth. There's the truth. The truth. But Russia started this war, and the truth that those kids are kidnapped.
A lot of times, the truth is evolved with the data.
No, it isn't. That's a fact. Those children were kidnapped. That's
anyway.
Fact.
So, I explain you the way how I voted. I voted abstention on that.
Because you didn't have enough information. It seems like you treat this entire place like a meme, like a joke, like you did on your Prankster YouTube channel. You don't do enough research for any of the topics that you vote on.
Okay, that's your right to believe. But, you know, I believe that, honestly, I'm doing more research about voting maybe than everyone in this house, because maybe on the top 10 out of the 720 MEP.
I thought he was going to say like 90%, but everyone.
Because I'm independent, and I don't have a political group to give me the voting list and to tell me what to vote. So I research every single vote, me and my team, and we debate about everything.
No, you said you just read something from the parliament. Why didn't you do any more investigation into that? You said that you just looked at the two sources.
On that week, we voted 500 things, and to spend my team 1-2 hours to do that investigation, and for me to spend 1 hour debating about this, it's plenty of time for us to decide something. And we do this for each vote, for 500 votes that we have. So I think this is very, very good job that we are doing on debating and voting what to. And I don't think anyone else here does much research for what they vote.
Well, you've done clearly no research about Russia and Ukraine.
And I have the right to believe what I believe with the limited time and also limited information that I have.
The information that you've been putting out, the propaganda you've been putting out, is all sided to Russia, all of it, including what you did with your stats about Russian speakers, including what you talk about with the peace and diplomacy, and you've done no research into what's going on in Ukraine. And you say that you've been looking into going, but it's been 3.5 years. You're obsessed with Ukraine and you haven't been, which is pretty easy to draw a conclusion that you're completely uninterested in peace. You don't even want to condemn the aggressor. Again, if this was 1945.
Dude, if he came to Ukraine, man, I'd host him in my apartment. He wants to come to Ukraine. I'll bring him to Luhansk. I'll bring him to Luhansk.
You'd be siding with Hitler, who invaded countries around it, and say that we need it through diplomacy. These are all facts.
So Turkey invaded Cyprus.
I'm not talking about Turkey.
And you are saying that everyone here in the European Parliament that is collaborating with Turkey and will have good diplomatic ways, they are also will go with Hitler.
I'm not talking about Turkey or the other MEPs. I haven't investigated anybody else. I've just been looking at your content.
So you're just selective. You're just taking a topic. You don't see the big picture. So Turkey invaded my country, Cyprus.
I'm not talking about
It's
Turkey.
the same
I'm not
thing.
talking about it.
So everyone here that has diplomatic ties with Turkey in the European Parliament, and they want to continue collaborating with Turkey, should go and work with.
Doing that while Turkey would be bombing the Cypriots might not be the way to do it. I don't know. Doesn't seem like to me.
They are siding also with Hitler.
Why do you think I'm not doing investigations about other people? I'm talking about you, not other MEPs, and I'm not talking about anybody else. I'm here to talk about you. But you seem to skirt around every single one of my questions. You don't really want to answer about the kidnapped children. And I've asked you, in Ireland they speak English. Should Britain take Ireland? I mean, this is your logic.
I said it's not only that, there is a lot of things, a lot more deeper root cause that I explain you.
But you don't want to go there and find out the truth, right? You just want to go to Russia instead while they launch missiles.
My friend, like, I believe what I believe with the information that I had and the research that I had. Do I have the right to believe something different than you?
Yeah, but you should be held accountable.
Okay, you are holding me accountable. You are doing your research.
Why do you think that...
And I have the right to believe what I believe.
It looks like you've decided what you want to believe before any of this happened.
We are both doing our jobs. Cool.
Okay, I think that this is not really working because you're skirting around everything that I'm saying. You're saying that there are two truths.
He looks so deflated. He's checked out.
When there isn't. And it looks like you're just going to continue to do this. Are you going to continue making anti-Ukraine propaganda and pro-Russian propaganda for the next few months? And what are you going to do?
I will do whatever I want.
Your comments are overwhelmingly negative
that's
right now.
What my mandate is. I will exercise my mandate however I believe is good.
Overwhelmingly, the comments on all of your videos across platforms are incredibly negative right now. People who support Ukraine, people that support democracy. Why is that?
I'm not sure. You should read more my comments.
I do right now on Twitter and on TikTok. Overwhelmingly, people.
More my comments.
And when I made a video saying I was investigating you, a lot of people were pretty happy about it because people have been pretty disgusted with what you've been putting out. You say that you're representing people, but the only people you're representing are in the Kremlin.
Cool, my friend. I don't have a problem with people being mad. I'm immune to people disliking me. I don't mind people disliking me. I don't mind people being angry with me. I don't care. I want to do what I believe is true, whatever the consequence. And you think that I didn't know going into this topic that I will have people like you, people in the parliament against me. But I do what I believe it's true, and I act with actions, and this is what.
Unless it's very unpopular and it only gets 4 votes, then I abstain.
Well, you don't because you don't want to go to Ukraine. So you don't put it into actions. You go to Russia.
I told you I already went to Ukraine, and
before the invasion.
And I am talking with other MEPs. We're already discussing to do a trip to Ukraine. We're a bit afraid to do this. But we are trying to see and look into it.
Okay, well, I look forward to seeing you actually go to Ukraine and find out the truth. And then finally, do you condemn Russia for what they did in Ukraine? Do you 100% condemn what they did?
Yes, I condemn the invasion. I'm not happy with it. I don't agree with the invasion. I think it's a mistake.
Have you got any more trips to Moscow lined up?
I'm not sure. I tried to get an interview with Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, but also I tried.
What the hell is that going to do, speaking to someone like Lavrov?
Also, I have an interview lined up.
Wait, that was a good question. What the hell is talking to Lavrov gonna do?
Also with the foreign minister.
It's just so he can fucking pose next to you and say, "Look at us."
The ex-foreign minister of Ukraine.
So more Russian propagandists.
Of Ukraine as well.
Like Lavrov. Okay,
so,
excellent.
But I'm doing also with you, and he agreed, and we just need to find the time. The ex-foreign minister of Ukraine, and he's willing to talk with me.
So you got the current foreign minister of Russia, and you're gonna go with the ex. Probably because the current foreign minister doesn't want to meet you, and the current foreign minister of Russia does want to meet you because you're one of the few Westerners that give him a propaganda opportunity.
So I'm trying to understand both sides. I'm trying to move towards a more diplomatic solution instead of continuing.
You want to understand both sides? Whatever.
In the
I need to go to bed.
war for thousands, hundreds of thousands of people.
Well, you should put your money where your mouth is, and you should put your words into actions. You should go to Ukraine and you should start putting out content.
I'm talking to you. I'm trying to we're trying to arrange for me to interview the ex-foreign minister of Ukraine, and also we're looking into going to Ukraine.
I think this is done.
I think this is done. No, thank you. No, I think this is done. My goodness. Cold. It stings, I tell you.